Harry, this is Lord Potato, and this is what if Asta was like Virgil. Now, yes, I did mention in my, other video of Asta that I am making 3 Asta what ifs. I know I'm gonna have to finish the old ones, like the very old ones. Don't know why I even made those, but not the point. I might redo them because I have a better idea for them, but not the point. You're probably wondering, yeah, why the fuck are you doing another Asta video and not a Naruto video? Because I'm really just burnt out from them. But not the point. I'm just doing this. I will try to do a Naruto video. Not today, probably tomorrow. But this is why I'm doing it today for this Asta what if, because I had the kind of good idea for this. But not the point. So, let me begin into this what if and shut up for myself. But before I do that, go subscribe to my channel, iconic what ifs and over to what ifs. Links will be in the description. But other than that, after this video, I'll probably go watch more anime. Yeah, I haven't really been uploading that much because I've just been watching anime. But not the point. So, let me go into this what if and shut up. But yeah. So, we go into, a child being born. This child has, kind of been left at an orphanage. Kind of at a church mostly. This is where, the father of that church comes outside and finds a boy named Yuno with a pendant necklace. This is where he says, interesting. The other child is named Asta. Asta with no pendant. But one thing that actually stick out to him was it is a pendant. This pendant is kind of bluish. It's a bluish color. Of course, this is where, it looked like to be some kind of diamond pendant. It was bluish color. But of course, even though Asta didn't have a last name, there was not just Asta, but it had his last name stands with an S, and that's all. No last name, just an S, just Asta S. So the father thought that S might have stand for something. Of course, Asta wasn't wearing that like white clothing or anything. He was wearing black, and of course it did say Asta. Of course, this is where it might have said Asta, but it also did kind of, just kind of, do I want to, wait, no, I was thinking about this. I wanted to actually change Asta's name to Virgil, but not the point. So, of course, it just said Asta S. This is where, Asta's crater was a little bit more kind of, taken care of, it wasn't just like, what's it called, weed, not weed, what was it called? A straw carriage and all that. It was actually made out of wood a little bit, but also kind of metal a little bit. So of course, the father didn't understand, but of course he decides to raise both the kids. This is where, Asta, when he was getting older, of course, Asta was very friendly and very kind, but of course, he always had this side to him, like he wasn't normal. He, of course, could sense magic pretty good. Of course, he had always this force sense. But it was so interesting that he was very interesting. He wasn't like a normal kid that much, but at the same time, he could be a normal kid. This is where, Asta didn't have the same, magic kind of frequency than like the others. It was kind of different. But that didn't stop him into trying to, help Yuno. Since Yuno is his kind of twinish brother, because they are kind of a little bit the same age at the same time. And so where, Asta didn't really know who his brother was or family at all, but he knew that Yuno was somewhat his brother. Of course, this is where Yuno was still asked to kind of go buy the thing and all that. And not buy, to pay the people and all that. Of course, Yuno didn't came back, so Asta went to go look for him. Now, Asta sees Yuno getting beaten up, and when Yuno was threatening this person with his friend magic, the person says, if you do, I'll kill you. This is where Yuno starts crying, closing his eyes. It's where Asta says, let go of that pendant for my brother. This is where the older man says, huh? Another brat? Asta didn't rush at him. Instead, this is where the older man says, "What do you want, little brat? Oh, you have also a pendant. I should grab it." Before he even grabs Asta, Asta disappears in blinding speed. Asta was already up in the air, smashing a kick into this man's face. This is where this man gets pushed back and the pendant lets go of his hand. That's where Asta grabs it and gives it to Yuno. That's where Yuno says, "Asta?" Asta says, "I am Asta S, and I will not let you, my brother, get hurt." That's where Asta looked at this man with his, one green eye and one blue eye. He has a mixed match of one blue eye and one green eye. For some reason, he's completely different from anyone, but yeah. Of course, this older man rushes at Asta trying to punch him, but Asta was quicker. This is where Asta knees this man in the stomach and then back kicks this man near the legs to push him underneath and make him fall down. This is where the old man gets angry and rushes at Asta. For some reason, Asta then thinks in his head, "This guy doesn't give up. Really annoying. I'm not gonna give up neither." This is where, for some reason he has a little memory. Before, when he was a child, the only thing that he remembers when he was a child is, "Virgil, be always to protect your brother." This is where, Asta says, "Virgil. Interesting. A very powerful name. But I still don't know who they are." This is where Asta has always been getting glimpses of memories. He doesn't understand, but this is where Asta kicks this person in the head. Kicks him in the head, pushing him away. Of course, the other man, who keeps being drunk and being unstable that much, he falls down because he's knocked out and goes to sleep because of how drunk he was. Asta says, "Let's go." This is where Yuno says, "Should we?" "No, we shouldn't. Let's go." This is where, Asta goes with back to the church, but yeah. A lot more years went by, and of course, Asta and Yuno has been getting older. Asta, on the other hand, instead of getting shorter, he became bigger. This is where Asta's actually a little bit taller than, Yuno. Yuno is actually 5'6". Wait, no, not 5'6". While Yuno is 5'6", Asta was 5'8". He was taller than, Yuno. Yuno was actually pretty damn shocked. Or, not 5'8", no. I'm gonna say 5'6" also. The same height as, Yuno. Yuno might have been good looking for, a commoner. So many people have said that. Asta, on the other hand, he looks way better from being actually a commoner. People actually mistake him from actually being a nobleman. Asta always got confused with that. Even though Asta might have hurt his face, sometimes even got scars, they always heal in an instant. Asta's healing regeneration was faster than anyone's. Asta never understand that, but he didn't care. Asta also dressed kind of nicely. Even though he didn't have much money, for some reason he always had the style of wearing a blue coat and some with this blue suit a little bit, but yeah. Who wears kind of a black kind of long sleeve, and that's all. And also khaki pants or whatever. And brown shoes? I don't remember what he wears. Brown shoes? I don't remember. Of course, this is where Asta wears, kind of black shoes, but yeah. So many people are mistaken for always being a nobleman, but yeah. This is where, when they get towards, the kind of grimoire side, they notice one thing. Asta, he doesn't use magic normally. For some reason, they realize that Asta doesn't have magic somewhat. They don't understand it, but they just go along with it. Of course, Asta, he does train his body and does work out a little bit and all that, so he can be extremely fast and strong. But his strength and speed is superhuman strength. It's not superhuman, mostly unnatural. He's gotten faster and stronger. Even with his training, he gotten actually way faster than that. The original canon, he's way faster and stronger. Asta, on the other hand, kind of always took in a liking to actually use weapons. So sometimes he'd be using a stick or even a like a wooden sword to kind of like use it to fight, to play around. But yeah, he always took in a liking to swords instead of actually using magic. But this is where, well, Yuno has actually been using, well, his own what's called, like, magic, his wind magic, against Asta, but he never could win against Asta. But even with them being, well, the two twins, somewhat, they're not really siblings, there was someone else who was actually the same age as them. A girl with blue hair, well, blue hair and purple eyes. Wait. She had, well, somewhat dark blue hair. It was well, not dark blue hair, it was kind of very lightish to be blue hair. This is where, well, she had kind of a lightish but purplish blue eyes mostly. But yeah, of course, her name was, well, what's called Umi, just Umi. This is where, well, she was somewhat, really good friends with, well, Asta and even Yuno. Of course, she did live in the, what's it called, like, well, a church and all that. Of course, squeezed in with the others. But of course, she was very powerful in water magic. Very powerful. This is where, well, she was powerful in water magic and even, well, just water magic in general. But of course, she thought she had a second, well, nature, but she didn't. This is where, well, just water, and of course, was able to kind of best Yuno in some times. Against Asta and his speed, his, like, superhuman unnatural speed, and also his superhuman unnatural strength, he could always defeat her pretty easily. This is where Umi was pretty angry, but yeah. Of course, this is where, well, she is just kind of going along to get a grimoire also. This is where Yuno gets his 4-leaf grimoire. This is where Umi also gets a 4-leaf grimoire. Asta gets nothing. Asta just says, knew that was shit was gonna happen. This is where everyone kind of laughs at Asta, but they're shocked to see two commoners get, well, a 4-leaf grimoire. Of course, Umi is excited, even Yuno somewhat, but this is where Asta seems to be less impressed. He doesn't really care. This is where Asta just seems to really not care. I should mention that Umi is the height of being, well, 5'4". She's a little bit shorter than both of the two boys, but yeah. This is where Asta, he just goes to kind of, well, run around, just do a jog and all that. And of course, this is where, well, Umi and Yuno do get attacked by the chain dude, and this is where the chain dude says, "Ha, you people will never be able to defeat me. Now that I have your 2 4-leaf grimoire, I'm gonna sell them on the black market." This is where, well, Umi actually has a pendant, like a actually necklace and all that. That's actually kind of a bluish, like darkish bluish color. That's similar to like a heart a little bit, but yeah. Of course, she doesn't really understand it. Neither does Yuno because he has his own, and also does have his own. But yeah, this is where, well, Yuno, well, not Yuno. Yuno and Umi can't really get out of the chains. They are trying to get out and trying to get their grimoires, but of course they can't. Of course, the two noble dudes were also knocked the fuck out. Asta, that just jumps down from the, like, well, that one wall, and easily lands down quietly into the ground. That's where Asta says, "Hey, let go of the, what's it called, let go of my friends, or mostly brother and sister." That's where, well, the other man says, "Oh, I see you're the guy with no grimoire. Do you think you're going to defeat me?" Asta says, "Yeah, I can kick your ass." That's where the man says, "Fine, let's see if you can." He throws chains and, well, at Asta. Asta dodges it pretty easily. He's extremely, he's extremely fast. That's where Asta just keeps dodging. That's where he knees his man in the face. That's where Asta, like, he says, are you done giving up or something?" This is where he says, "Giving up? Ha! Me? Give up? Do you think I'm just a weakling like you? No, I'm not a weak." This is where before something happens, two events happens. Also was really annoyed because he can't really, like, cut through these chains, and of course he did get cut a little bit, but of course this is where two things happen at the same time. Two grimoires appear right in front of Asta, one being red and has a 5-leaf clover, the other one being blue and has a 5-leaf clover but with horns around, kind of showing to be kind of horns, like on the texture. It's not horns like getting out, But of course, this is where it also has a symbol of a sword. This is where Asta looks towards it, but looks at the other book. This is where something happens. Both books open. One book writes and shows Yamato. The other one shows anti-sword. They both pull up. This is where Asta does not understand what is happening. Well, not the anti-sword, the big giant anti-sword. Instead, something else pulls out. Enma. The sword, it's just like, not Enma, what's it called? An anti-katana comes out that is black and red. And his name is, well, the other sword that Asta from the language he could read from the two books. One was called Yamato, the other one was called Demon Eraser. This is where he grabs both the katanas, and this is where Asta looks at, well, the person. But of course, I should mention one thing. Asta's pendant started changing. It started changing into one blue side and one red side. Asta didn't understand, but this is where, well, Asta's two grimoires were right next to him, and of course he has his two katanas. This is where he pulls out the two blades. One blade was all rusted and black, while the other blade was sharpened, like very sharpened, to be kind of, well, to be able to cut anything. It was just shown to be sharpened enough. Asta's speed disappeared in an instant. Asta then appears right behind this person, and all you hear in the background is, but yes, all you hear in that background is that. It's where Asta, he sheaves his two blades back into the sheath. And this is where he puts the two blades into the two different grimoires. This is where he grabs both the grimoires with just one hand. Of course, he also grabs the other two grimoires and throws them at, well, Yuno and Umi. Umi was in shock, seeing two grimoires that, well, Asta has. Asta, on the other hand, is confused why he has even two of them. Of course, he doesn't really mind it, because two swords just appear, but of course, he doesn't care. This is where Asta decides to open one of the grimoires. This is where, well, when he starts trying to look to read and all that, he sees some of the pages are blank, except for that one. But this is where Asta then looks at the very front. Sparta. Sparta. That's what it stands for. This is where he looks at the other one, and of course can't get any information from it instead of just reading these languages, mostly because there's only one page that has these writings. But there's another one, but Asta's not going to summon it right now. This is where, well, he's confused, but of course he thinks that the S name in his name stands for Sparta. But of course he still doesn't really understand, but of course he doesn't mind. This is where, well, Asta on the other hand just decides to kind of go back to, well, the house. This is where, well, of course this is where Asta, he goes back to the, well, church, of course, with Yuno and even Umi. This is where Yuno and Umi does think of, like, becoming the Wizard King, which they still have the belief in all that. Asta does also has it, but he's a little bit more quieter than normal. That's where, well, they ask him if he wants to be the Wizard King. Asta say, sure, why not? This is where they nod and kind of, well, Umi's the loudmouth a little bit. Asta's very kind of, well, not quiet. He can be angry half the damn time, or even stubborn half the damn time. This is where Yuno is sometimes just the same as the original canon. This is where, well, they get back to the church, and, well, the next day happens, and Asta does discover his magic. His magic is not normal. It's not even magic for normal humans. It's called demonic energy. What demonic magic? He realized he can create anything in air. He realized that in the air he can create swords and even other things. This is where Umi and Yuno realize that Asta does have magic, it's just magic that can't fucking sense. Which is very confusing to him, well, to them and even Asta, but Asta does not care. Of course, he does train with his two swords. One sword is able to use what's called anti-magic. This is where he realized he can cut through any magic. Umi and, well, Yuno were kind of training, and Umi sent a water ball, almost hitting, well, Natsu. Well, not Natsu, Nashu. This is where Asta cut it with his anti-magic sword and realized he can cut through anything. This is where, well, he realized Yamato is something that goes to speed. But this is where Asta does not really care that much. But this is where Asta just really trains with his two swords to perfect swordsmanship. Even though there's no one to actually train him, he doesn't mind. That's where Asta does realize that a new page actually was in the book. In the, well, bluish book, because it was a dark kind of blue book. That's where Asta kind of reads on it and kind of just sees that there's some pages in there that he kind of sees that they're kind of new. They keep coming up mostly every time Asta trains. In his demonic book, he sees that there's some more pages, but he can't fucking read it because, yeah. This is where Asta does not really mind, but he realized that after receiving these two books, he is now, his strength is very strong. His speed is also, his stamina, his everything just kind of increases. Also his regeneration. This is where Asta does not know, but he just doesn't know. All of this is kind of the awakening of the grimoire that's dark blue. Now, I know that all of you are going to be confused and why I gave Asta two different books. One is definitely the anti-magic book, yes. The other one is, well, the Sparda book. You see here, this world is going to contain, yes, demons, but also it's going to contain, well, some of the Devil May Cry characters. Yes, Sparda is Asta's father, if you could have got the, what's it called? But yes. Also the mother, don't worry, it's going to be just the same original canon for Asta. Don't worry, they kind of had a kid, and yes, that's Asta, but don't worry. I know what you're also going to think. Is Asta going to have his twin brother named Dante? Don't worry about it. In the near future, you will understand when he will come. But yeah, this is where, well, that is, well, the thing. And of course, this is where, well, Asta is just training and more things, but yeah. Of course, this is where 3 months pass, and of course, this is where they are going towards becoming a magic knight in the exams. This is where, well, when they get to the magic knights, this is where, well, Asta shows two grimoires. This is where some of them shows their 4-leaf grimoire, but yeah, to kind of get in. This is where, well, Umi is kind of number 79. This is where, it's kind of the same number. And, well, for Asta, he gets 66. This is where Asta says, interesting. Just put one more 6 and basically the demon. This is where Asta does not care, but this is where all of them, they get to, like, the broom part and other things. That's where Asta can actually fly on the broom. His demonic magic allows him to actually be able to lift up. And of course, he does have lots of mana. Lots of demonic mana. Not his normal human mana. Just demonic mana. Because you see here, Asta, well, if you already know about Asta's mother, like in original canon for Black Clover, then you know that Asta is not going to have mana. But this is demonic mana that actually kind of shows him to actually fly and other things. But no one can really sense it. Now, of course, Asta can actually stand on the broom pretty easily. It's actually already standing on there. And Umi, she can just stand up also. That's where so many people are just winding their eyes, seeing just 3 commoners just fly up pretty easily. This is where Asta can grow the things. He can do whatever, the same thing in original canon. And this is where, well, not original canon, he can actually do way better. Of course, Asta did bump into Yami before this started. And of course, Yami took an entrance towards Asta. Let me say that again. Took an entrance towards Asta. Now, Asta, when he sees the captains, he actually sees Yami to be the only one with a katana, a swordsman user. That's where he was always interested in using swords. So, if he's not accepted by any of them, he's going to ask Yami if he can be in that team. This is where, everyone kind of sees how strong they are, and this is where it is kind of the fight. This is where Umi was about to pick someone to fight her, because she knows that and even Asta will be fighting each other. But this is where Asta kind of gets bumped in by the same dude, haha guy, because he can see, even though Asta can do the same thing, he's going to fight against Asta because he can't really sense magic from him exactly. He thinks all of those are kind of flukes. But this is where, when Asta's fighting against this dude, this is where the haha guy does make the barrier still and says, "You will never defeat me." That's where some people are saying, this guy's an idiot, right? What type of magic is this other dude going to make? The guy with 2 grimoires. Asta didn't pull out any of his, what's it called, grimoires. Well, he did. He pulled out the blue one. That's to where, well, he said, spears of, well, what's it called? He makes spears in air. He says, demonic spears piercing. This is where he sends him straight towards the guy in the barrier. This is where they rip through so easily and pierces this guy near the chest. This is where another one stuck into his leg and one of them was stuck in his arm. This is where he's screaming in pain. Asta, who is walking towards him, he did also use the other book. He actually kind of combined both books into kind of giving a magical ability when he actually uses the demonic magic to make, well, these spears. They were just called, well, heaven spears, but then they changed to demonic spears when he added anti-magic into them, kind of destroying the barrier. This is where Asta, who is going towards him, he says, give up already? This is where the man says, I will never give up, haha. This is where Asta says, got it. This is where Asta stomps on his head. This is where Asta shows to be brutal as hell. This is where some of the captains were kind of worried. And this is where Yami kind of says, interesting. Very interesting. This is where, well, Umi goes against some magical, well, noble, like, girl and all that. And this is where she sends a water dragon. A big-ass water dragon straight towards this water noble. Because this noble thought he was actually going, well, not he, it was mostly a she. And she had, what's it called, lightning? Lightning magic? Well, not lightning magic, it was, what's it called, earth magic? And of course he thought, well, not he, she thought he was going to win against Umi. Umi wiped her. She wiped the whole fucking floor with her. Literally. Because the water dragon just broke through and splashed her down to the ground. But yeah, that's when Umi won. And of course next was, well, Yuno still won by kind of using that wind magic to blow away that lightning magic and really take out the dude. But yeah, everyone realized that these 3 commoners are really powerful, especially Umi. But then they realized that Asta isn't that much weaker than them. That's where Asta seems to have a very calm, collected personality, but also could be dangerous sometimes. That's where, well, Umi does scream out, yes, I'm gonna win. That's where, well, all of them get chosen to the different, well, same in the original canon. Except for Umi kind of joins, well, mostly that when Umi kind of went up there, yes, did pick the Golden Dawn. Umi picked, well, she was thinking of which would actually help her more. This is where she didn't actually understand which to go. But, well, there was only a couple of people racing up for Umi's to kind of join the group. This is where, well, it was a Sylveon, the Blue Rose, and even somewhat the Golden Dawn. This is where, well, Umi didn't really want to go to the same kind of squad with the Yuno. This is where she decided to go with the Blue Rose. This is where, well, the Blue Rose kind of nodded because, well, Charlie or whatever her name is, does kind of see that Umi to be very strong in water magic. To see that she's also very kind and kind of loudmouth half the time, but still very good. This is where when, well, Asta gets there, he does change his name from, well, not really change his name. He keeps the S still. But of course, this is where an Asta goes up. Some people raise his hands. Yes, William did also raise his hands. And there were some people that were shocked to see Umi going with the Blue Rose. But of course, this is where some people were kind of jealous, but not much. Or also jealous for, kind of going into the Golden Dawn. This is where, well, the Sylveons do not raise up their hands for Asta. It was mostly with the Crimson Lions, Yami, and even the Golden Dawn again. This is where, well, the Golden Dawn, he didn't feel bad for, well, Umi going towards the, what's it called? Well, the Blue Rose. This is where, well, Asta that looks up, he kind of looks at all of them, and this is where Asta thinks, which one would be stronger? Asta kind of uses sensory, because yes, he has a very powerful sensory. This is where he looks at all of them, and sees that Yami is actually the strongest. This is where he says the Black Bulls. This is where Yami was surprised. He thought that, Asta would actually pick the Golden Dawn or the Red Crimson. No, he picked straight up Yami. This is where, well, Yami smiles. The Golden Dawn was kind of surprised, but then just like, eh. This is where the Red Crimson Lions kind of sees that, well, he picks Yami. Now, he does know that Yami's very powerful, but then again, does this kid already know about that? This is where, well, some people were just confused. Just dead ass confused. Umi was also confused. She was about to scream at Asta to go pick someone else than the, well, Black Bulls. This is where, well, Yami jumps down just to see a little test to see if this kid is actually being stupid or something. This is where a very pressure of power goes down on Asta. But this is where Asta does also make a very powerful pressure of power going down on, well, mostly a cloak of power, like a thin, like magical cloak of power does appear also on Asta. This is where Asta and Yami were kind of glaring at each other. This is where Yami smiles and starts laughing, of course still having the cigarette in his mouth, and saying, "You're very interesting, kid. Then, welcome to the Black Bulls." That's where Asta says, of course. Besides, aren't you a swordsman? That's where Yami says, "Oh, I am. Are you interested in swordsmanship?" Of course. I didn't really show much of my skills because I'm not very good at it. But still, I want to learn how to use a sword. And you're the only one with an interesting katana. That's where, well, Yami says, "Oh, so you know the sword's name. You're a very interesting kid. Then let's go. Finral, get over here." Finral says, "Yes, sir." This is where he walks down and, yeah. This is where, well, this is where the captain says, "We're not done, Yami." Yami says, "Screw the other ones. Whoever's going next, I'm just leaving. Bye." This is where Finral does make the portal. They all leave. This is where they say, damn. This is where, well, when Asta does go into, well, the Black Bulls, this is where he sees everyone just going crazy. This is where Asta just kind of smirks and says, "Very interesting bunch." This is where, well, Yami says, "Yeah, they are interesting. Well, I gotta tell them all to shut up." "Shut up, you idiot!" This is where Asta kind of switches up, so doesn't mind. This is where, well, everyone shuts up. This is where, well, Yami says, "This is a new person into, well, the Black Bulls." This is where Asta's face doesn't look that bad, and this is where Vanessa says, "Hot." This is where Asta says, "What?" This is where, well, everyone just kind of says, "Nice to meet you, Asta," Asta said. There's no last name. This is where Asta lied about that last name because Sparta might be his last name, but he doesn't know it certainly. But of course he doesn't care. This is where, well, Magna still wants to fight against Asta. Asta, on the other hand, fights against him and kicks the shit out of, well, Magna. This is where Magna did try to use his fireballs against Asta, but Asta did pull out his, well, red eraser. Well, mostly it was called Demon Eraser, and of course erased the, well, like magic completely from the thin air. And so Asta rushes at, well, Magna, punching him in the face, just knocking his ass out. This is where, well, Asta, and the next day, he doesn't really do the chores so much. He doesn't really mind it, but of course he does it because, yeah. This is where he meets Noelle, and Noelle kind of looks at Asta, and Asta does have the stoic face to being kind of like a Sylvian, which she gets kind of scared. This is where Asta says, "Are you okay?" This is where Noelle says, "Yeah, I am, because I'm a noble." This is where Asta says, "Okay. I thought they were going to mistake me for a noble, but okay, never mind." Because when Asta kind of did choose the Black Bulls, people were shocked, thinking a noble accepted the Black Bulls, which a lot of people didn't actually expect Asta to be a commoner because he had two, well, like grimoires, which was shocking, and he kind of dressed way too, like, good to actually be a commoner, which Asta kind of just took those clothing, which I should mention. But Asta, he kind of just had them, and of course multiple people really thought he was a fucking noble, or even more than a noble. This is where, well, Asta didn't really care, and of course he did choose the Black Bull, so he didn't want to kind of be judged by the others fucking captains. But yeah, this is where, well, Yami did ask Asta if he was a noble. This is where multiple of, what's it called, Asta's other members did ask him if he was a noble. Even Noelle did ask if he was a noble. This is where Asta said no, 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 and no. That's where Noelle was actually confused, but her face was kind of red because even though Asta said he was not a noble, he is way too good looking to actually not be a noble. But of course, this is where we go into a time skip of Asta still saving Noelle, and of course Noelle was happy about it. But yeah, now of course Noelle kind of, she doesn't really hate Asta, which, yeah, because like I'm a canon. But yeah, of course, this is where Magna and even Yami still does kind of lose to that old man. And yes, Magna says, okay, let's go. This is where Asta says, I'll get on my own broom. That's where Noel decides to kind of go on Asta's broom. And that's where Asta does kind of fly up there. But yeah, that's where Magna is flying. And he didn't waste that much magic like original canon. This is where Asta, he gets to the, like, fighting against the hogs and all that. Like the, the hogs. This is where Noelle, she is scared that she might accidentally hit Asta. Asta says, just be fine. You're not gonna hit me. Just spread and shoot at me. This is where, Noelle says, but I can't hit you. You're my teammate. This is where Asta says, do it. This is where Noelle starts, but this is where Asta dodges. Extremely fast. This is where some of the water bubbles also do hit like the hogs. And this is where Noelle is kind of getting this little confidence boost that she's doing this, she's doing it good. Like, she's actually doing it. This is where Asta is just dodging most of the time. His speed is way too damn fast. This is where one hog that was actually crimson red and showing crimson red flames rushing at Noelle appears. But this is where Asta appears with Yamato. He says, Yamato. This is where he cuts the boar into a million pieces. This is where he puts the sword back and says, are you okay? Noelle blushes because, holy shit, Asta is really close to her. This is where, she says, yeah. This is where Asta says, your face is red. Very interesting. You sick or something? That's where Noelle says, no. That's where Asta says, then let's go to Magna. If you are sick, I'm going to have to bring it back to the Black Bulls or something. This is where Noelle says, I'm fine. This is where, Magna says, are you two already done? Asta says, yep. That's where Magna says, fine. This is where they kind of get to that village. But of course, where it's misty. And of course, this is where Asta says, I'll cut through it. This is where, he pulls out the sword. And this is where he sends a very powerful slash of anti-magic through the mist. Hitting, one of the, magic robe guys. This is where that guy gets a slash mark and falls down. This is where the guy with the sword magic is trying to send like swords at them. But this is where that guy with the ice using, he was about to cut this guy. And this is where Asta appears saying, Yamato, cut this man in an instant down. This is where multiple slashes appear with the other robes. And this is where Asta, he sheaths his sword back. And this is where all of them have cut marks and they all fall down. This is where, Magna says, old man. That's where the old man says, you fucking, punk. You're back. This is where he's laughing, but of course he's extremely hurt. This is where, Noelle widened her eyes. Of course, she did make a barrier when Asta was going there, because the ice spike was about to hit this guy, but of course it still went through the barrier, hitting him. This is where he says, sorry, Magna. This is where he falls down. This is where Magna says, oh man, no. This is where, he's kind of like crying because he doesn't want him to die. And, Noelle doesn't have any magical healing spells. And this is where, Asta, on the other hand, he looks through his book and sees one thing. Demonic restoration. That's what I said. This is where, it was called omnipotent healing factor. This is where Asta kind of uses it. This is where, on the old man, and he heals, but also kind of changes back in time a little bit to a younger state. This is where he says, what the hell happened? This is where Magna says, huh? Did he just become younger? This is where, the older man says, huh? It seems I did. Guess what, Magna? Fuck you, I'm younger now. Now you can't call me old man. That's where Magna says, I'm gonna call you old man still. This is where the old man says, I'm gonna kill you, brat. Magna runs, but yeah. This is where, Noelle sighs, but this is where she's happy. This is where Asta says, so are you really fine, Noelle? You seem to be really red. This is where Noelle's face keeps getting red and red. Now, of course, Asta does know what he's doing. He's just being really tricky. This is where, he's not stupid in love. He has done this also to, Umi. Umi's face sometimes gets red all of a sudden, and Asta really likes just messing with them. But yeah, when he kind of has a flashback. But yeah, this is where Asta, he kind of says, well, when are we going back? What's it called, Magda? Magda says, we're going back later. Don't worry about it, guys. I have it all under control. He's about to get stabbed again, but yeah, he's running. This is where, well, they get back to the Black Pools. And of course, this is where, well, Asta and Noel are kind of told, well, not told. They mostly do get money. Asta realized that he has money now. He can go buy stuff, but Asta doesn't really need things to buy. Unless he wants to kind of change his robe. Because his robe was mostly really, it was black. It was kind of like a original canon, but of course it was somewhat, some things were kind of like patch up, but yeah. Asta goes that he does kind of buy something that's similar to Virgil, but yeah. This is where Asta does it, and this is where, well, Asta is about to go back to the Black Bulls until Vanessa and even, well, Noel does find him and kind of tells him to get towards the black market. This is where Asta looking around. This is where Noel is looking to try to control her magic. Well, this is where Asta does find Haha Guy. This is where the Haha Guy kind of loses to an older lady. This is where Asta does keep an eye on the older lady, because he realized one thing. This is no old lady. This is where, well, Asta just ignores it and does go to a weapon shop. This weapon shop says, how may I help you? This is where Asta says, don't know. Just looking around. This is where, well, Asta kind of looks around until he noticed one sword. One sword that he was extremely confused why he having a reaction to it. But of course he goes towards it. And of course this sword is like, what's it called? For some reason it looked to be some kind of fragment of a blade. But of course, it had this very powerful aura of magic. That's why Asta just pick it up, and for some reason, he just gets this rush of power. Well, not really rush of power. It's kind of like locked for some reason. That's why Asta says, how much is this? That's why the older man says, it's just a fragment piece. About like 30 goes. That's where Asta says, sure, here. This is where the older man says, okay. Asta gets out of the, well, shop. And thus, like, his grimoire starts glowing very dark blue. This is where Asta pulls it out, and this is where the little fragment piece does go in it, and this is where writing started appearing. The Sparta. That's what it's called. The Sword of Sparta. A fragment piece. But this is where it doesn't really, like, say fully what it is. It just says, it doesn't say the Sword of Sparta, it just says sword piece out of a couple. This is where, well, Asta doesn't understand why, but this is where he does get somewhat of a rush of power. He doesn't understand why, but when he was feeling it, it was very powerful, the magic. Of course, Asta doesn't really care, but this is where he goes to kind of look for Noel and, well, Vanessa. When Asta manages to find him, he finds him with the Haha Guy. Asta just kicks him out of the way and says, hey girls, what are you doing? This is where Noel and, well, Vanessa says, oh, we're just talking to that guy, I guess. This is where Asta says, you mean the Haha Guy or whatever? That's where Haha says, my name isn't Haha, it was Haha, whatever his goddamn name was. But whatever. This is where Asta says, okay, don't care. This is where Asta kind of just doesn't really care about him. And this is where, well, yes, the old lady still, her money gets taken, but Asta does trip this guy and knock his ass out pretty easily. This is where, well, they kind of still give the money towards the old lady when they're outside the black market. But yeah, because, well, the guy did manage to kind of get away a little bit by using his, like, magic. But Asta did cut it outside being near. But yeah, this is where, well, the old lady says, thank you. This is where Julius was transforming back. But Asta came back just to talk to the old lady. Just to see if, well, can he get some pieces of gold real fast. This is where, well, Asta see Julius just transforming from the old lady towards Julius, and Asta says, and Julius says, may I help you? That's what Asta says, oh, I'm just looking for an old lady that was disguised as, well, you, sir, and not gonna lie, I am confused who the hell you are, but I'm just kind of just going to go away. I'm just going to walk away. Don't worry about me. You do you, sir. Whatever you were doing. This is where Asta just walks away, and this is where Julius realized that Asta just saw him, and Asta walks away because Asta was not going to deal with that shit. So of course Asta goes with Noel and even Vanessa, but yeah, that's where Asta does send gold straight towards before leaving, he did gamble with the others and did kind of take all their money. And did send it towards, the church. And this is where the church did get a lot. This is where, when they kind of meet up with the church and all that, did kind of ask how much did Asta send. And this is where, did spit out water because he wanted his eyes. How the hell did Asta even get that much money? Asta clean out the fucking, gambling place. Asta is not allowed to gamble again. That's one thing that Magnus has tried to ask for a rule. This is where Yami says, why not? This is where, Magnus says, because he emptied my shit in everyone else's pockets. This is where Yami says, wait, you did that? Yeah. I took about this much money. This is where Yami says, okay, well, we're not making that a fucking rule. Shut up, Magda. We're going to allow you to go more towards it. This is where, Magda says, what do you mean? What about the other people? Didn't we have to protect them? We are protecting them from their money. It's a waste of money if they lose it. This is where, Magna says, Captain, I'm not even going to say anything. This is where Yami says, yeah, shut up. This is where, also kind of like the next couple of weeks, he did kind of get called to go on a mission. Of course, this is where he did get a star. Yuna also did get a star, and even what's it called, Umi did get a star with her own team. But this is actually where I'm going to leave it off for kind of like part 1 of this what if. Because I am getting really fucking tired, but yeah. Other than that, have a nice potato day, potato night, potato seed, potato, and potato. Potato.